In our first reading today, we start to hear from the second book of Kings, which leaves off just where First Kings left off. And what's interesting is before Kings, there were different judges that ruled Israel, and they helped to lead and interpret the law. But the people of Israel looked around at the other nations around them and said, we want kings like they got. So we hear in the beginning of the first book of Kings, the first king of Israel, Samuel, and then we hear the progression of the different kings of Israel in these two books, obviously by their names, 1st and 2nd Kings. But what's also interesting is at the same time that we are starting to have kings in Israel, God also begins and inspires prophets. What's interesting is these two relationships, or these two roles, are dependent on each other. You have the people who are the kings who are leading Israel as religious and political leaders who have to lead the people, who have to make tough decisions, but who also have to receive hard truth at times from the prophets, all while seeking to follow the will of God. And then you have the prophets, the people who have to courageously speak to the rulers and the kings of their time, who have to share at times hard truth, who have to listen to the will of God, and both of them seeking the will of God in the everyday lives. Now, as we move forward and fast forward into Christ's time, remember that at the time of Christ, the political landscape has changed. No longer is it a king that's ruling Israel, but instead they are under the foreign power of secular Roman Empire, who is not share the same faith that they have. So Jesus takes on both the role of a king and a prophet. He has to embody both of these roles as in this new political landscape. So it reminds us that too, we as followers of Jesus at times have to be both prophets and also leaders. We have to be kingly. So we have to juggle these two roles now as followers of Jesus. There are times where we need to be leaders and courageously leading our families and our communities, or receiving hard truth. And there are other times where we need to be more prophetic, where we need to speak hard truth while also listening profoundly to God's voice and will in our lives. So I think we're invited in these readings to think about which of these two is Jesus inviting you to grow in today. Or is he challenging you to be more kingly, to lead others courageously, but also to receive that hard truth at times? Or is he calling you to listen to the voice of God in prayer and speak up when necessary? We are both called to be prophet and king in our own time so that we might more fully reflect Christ to the world today.